Get off this property. This house isn't yours, old black woman, yelled one of the men dressed as a police officer as they forcefully dragged the black veteran from her doorway. What those imposters didn't know was that they had chosen the wrong target. And when the truth came out, the cost of their hatred would be more than they could imagine. The sun burned mercilessly that afternoon when 62-year-old Eleanor Vance answered the sudden pounding at her front door. She wasn't expecting visitors, certainly not two men in cheap police uniforms with no badges. One, the older man with a nicotine-stained mustache, shoved a wrinkled paper toward her without even offering a greeting. "Ma'am, vacate immediately. This land isn't yours anymore." Eleanor studied the page. No seal, no signature, just a fake letterhead from a bogus neighborhood owners association. She raised her chin. "I bought this house 30 years ago. My children grew up here. No one is going to take it away." The younger man smirked. "Times have changed. People like you don't belong in this neighborhood. Better leave before we make you." Her fists tightened. She had endured a lifetime of insults, the stares in shops, the reminders that her skin marked her as an outsider. But this house was hers. Her memories lived within these walls. "I pay my taxes. My deed is valid. You have no authority." The older man laughed, slapping the doorframe. "Authority or not, you're leaving. One way or another." When Eleanor refused to move, they shoved past her, ransacking the living room, throwing cushions, photographs, and lamps to the floor. A framed picture of Eleanor in uniform holding her son slipped from its box and landed near her feet. She knelt, trembling, clutching it to her chest. "You monsters," she whispered, tears streaming. The younger man leaned close, mocking. "Look around. Do you see a single neighbor helping you? They want you gone as much as we do." Through the window, Eleanor glimpsed shadows behind curtains, silent witnesses unwilling to intervene. The weight of their cowardice pressed harder than the men's rough hands. "Please," she begged. "I have nowhere else. Don't do this." Her pleas fueled their cruelty. Derek twisted her arm and dragged her across the wooden floor toward the door. She kicked and struggled, her cries echoing down the street. But no one came. No door opened. With one violent shove, they hurled her onto the lawn. Grass scraped her knees as she struggled to rise. The older man tossed her shoes and coat after her, as if discarding trash. "Take your junk with you." Inside, they continued their rampage. The sound of breaking glass mixed with their laughter. Eleanor clutched the photo of her son, her sobs breaking into ragged breaths. But amid the despair, her fingers brushed something solid. Her phone, still tucked in her pocket. Her heart pounded. They thought she was broken. They thought she was alone. But she wasn't finished. She dialed quickly, her hands shaking. When a calm voice answered, she could barely speak. "They've thrown me out, 1254 Maple Street. Please come quickly. Are you hurt? Stay where you are." The voice instructed firmly. "We're on our way." Eleanor closed her eyes, letting those words steady her racing heart. For the first time since the men arrived, a spark of hope flickered. But the imposters were far from done. Derek appeared in the doorway, grinning at the sight of her clutching the phone. "Who are you calling? Think anyone cares?" He kicked another box onto the lawn, scattering letters and medals across the grass. One bronze service medal rolled to Eleanor's knees. She picked it up, her hand trembling, but her gaze was no longer only desperate. It was defiant. Frank leaned against the doorframe, waving the crumpled paper. "This is the end of the line, old woman. Stop pretending you belong here." Eleanor rose slowly, her body aching, her face streaked with tears. Yet her voice, though cracked, carried a quiet strength. "I fought for this country. I bled for it. You think a fake paper and a cheap uniform will scare me? You have no idea who you're dealing with." The men exchanged a glance, unsettled by the sudden steel in her tone. But Derek quickly masked it with a sneer. "Big word from someone on her knees." Eleanor held the medal in her palm, gripping it like a weapon, though her real weapon was something else entirely, the truth and the people she had just called. She didn't know how soon help would arrive, but she knew this wasn't over. The men turned back into the house, laughing, confident in their victory. But Eleanor remained standing on the lawn, her phone pressed tight in her hand, her eyes fixed on the door that had been slammed against her. They believed they had broken her. They believed she was powerless. They were wrong. And before the night ended, they would learn exactly how wrong. A distant roar of engines broke the afternoon silence. Two black SUVs screeched to a stop in front of the house, their presence shaking the quiet street. Doors slammed, and four imposing men stepped out with measured strides. Eleanor looked up, breath catching in her chest. She knew those faces. Sergeant, one of them called, rushing to her side and lifting her gently. His grip carried both strength and reverence. What the hell happened here? Tears blurred her vision. They said this isn't my house anymore. They dragged me out. The man steadied her while the others scanned the scene. Overturned furniture, shattered glass, personal treasures thrown like garbage. Their jaws tightened. They were Navy SEALs, men who had fought beside her or under her command. And now, seeing her treated like this, their rage burned. Inside, Frank and Derek remained oblivious, chuckling as they carried a heavy chest toward the door. But the sound of boots on the porch silenced their laughter. The SEALs entered without hesitation, their presence shifting the air like a storm breaking. Frank spun, clutching the fake paper. "Who the hell are you?" The tallest SEAL squared up to him. "Better question. Who are you? And why are you wearing a uniform you don't deserve?" Derek forced a grin, his voice shaky. "We're on official orders." She was being evicted. The SEAL ripped the cheap badge from his neck and dropped it to the floor. "This isn't authority. It's a costume." Frank paled, stumbling back. Another SEAL slammed him against the wall, his voice booming. "Who sent you? Answer." From the doorway, Eleanor clutched her medals, watching as power shifted at last. Derek tried to bluff, but his words faltered. "They told us the house was available, that no one would care if we got her out." "You don't know who you're dealing with," the youngest SEAL muttered. Frank squirmed in the iron grip holding him. "You can't do this. Let me go." "You just did it to her," the SEAL snarled. "Dragging a veteran from her own home? That's a crime." They forced both men outside, shoving them into the yard they had once ruled with arrogance. The neighborhood, until then silent, began to stir. Curtains shifted. Doors cracked open. Shame painted the faces of those who had hidden while Eleanor was attacked. "Neighbors," one SEAL bellowed, holding up the flimsy badge. "These men are imposters, not police." Gasps spread. The sight of the cuffed intruders was undeniable proof. The imposters were shoved into the SUVs, their heads down, stripped of their false pride. Eleanor, standing barefoot on the lawn, felt tears stream again, not of despair, but of relief. Her house was not gone. Her memories, though shaken, were still hers. She pressed her medals to her chest, whispering a silent vow never to bow again. Moments later, the SUVs roared away, carrying the criminals to the station. Real officers wasted no time. Eleanor gave her statement with a trembling voice, describing how she had been dragged, threatened, and humiliated. The SEALs backed every word. The district attorney stacked charges like bricks: impersonating officers, aggravated trespass, attempted robbery, coercion, threats, assault. Each accusation fell heavy, undeniable. Eleanor listened in silence, her dignity restored. Weeks later, judgment came swift. Frank Miller and Derek Collins were sentenced to years behind bars, no chance of easy escape. Their mugshots appeared on the news, disgrace for all to see. But more important than their downfall was Eleanor's truth revealed. The neighborhood, once complicit in silence, now knew the woman they had abandoned, a decorated veteran, respected, honored, unbroken. She returned home. The walls bore scars, the furniture stood out of place, yet each mark reminded her of survival. As the SEALs bid farewell at her door, one placed a hand on her shoulder. "It's over, Sergeant. They won't touch you again. And if they try," he nodded toward the others, "they'll have to get through us first." For the first time in years, Eleanor felt the weight of solitude lift. The neighbors who had watched in silence would never see her the same way again. She had endured their indifference, survived the impostor's cruelty, and proven that neither lies nor hatred could strip her of where she belonged.